Good afternoon and welcome to the September Ordinary Council meeting. I now ask Councillor Greg James to perform a welcome address.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Thank you. I pay respects to my ancestors. I acknowledge our elders, both past, present and emerging. I acknowledge the Yorta Yorta nations and all its people. So on behalf of the Elders Council, the 16 family groups and the 8 respected tribes who proudly share in the status of traditional owners of this land, I say a very warm welcome to this land, country and waterways. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture, and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in the agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as follows, and they are noted from 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 5, apologies, councillors. There is a recommendation there. Do we have someone that can please move the apologies? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I'd like to move recommendation to a motion that the apology of Councillor Jeff Dobson and also Councillor Summer be noted.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have someone second that? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. All those in favour? Motion carries. Item 6, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon?
Yes, thanks. Mayor Sally, yes, we have a conflict on item 12.4 on page 56, the Inner North Local Area Traffic Management Plan.
Thank you, Councillor James. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Is any items of the minutes opposed? No. There is a recommendation. The council move that as a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion that the minutes of the 16th March 2021 and 16 August 2022 council meetings as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have someone second that?
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Adam. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions, nil received. Item 10, community directorate, nil received. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, actually, that's right, yeah. That's odd. It's a bit different. Anyways, we'll now move on. 11.1, which is financial statements and performance statement for year ended 30th of June 2022, which is on page 8 of the agenda. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone move that as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to move the recommendation on page 8 of the agenda as a motion that the Council, number 1, approve in principle the financial statements and performance statement for the financial year ended 30th June 2022, and number 2, authorize the Mayor, Councillor Shane Sali, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Anthony Brophy, and the Chief Executive Officer, Peter Harriott, to certify the financial statements and to certify the performance statement in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have the councillor second that motion?
I second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Very quickly, this report basically presents our final financial statements and performance statement for the financial year ending June 30th, 2022. And it is for an in-principle approval prior to the submission to the Victorian Auditor General. We know that councillors, the report also confirms that the Council's Audit and Risk Management Committee have formally recommended that Council approve the financial and performance statements in principle. In accordance with the Act, the Council is required to prepare financial statements, and the Act also requires Council to approve in principle the financial statements and performance statements. It also requires that Council authorizes 2 councillors to satisfy the financial statements and performance statements in the final form, and also an authorization by the Chief Executive Officer and the Manager, Finance. The Audit and Risk Committee's role is very significant in reviewing these statements and ensuring that these are correct and they indeed represent a fair view of the Council's financial position. The performance against budget, it notes in the report, we have seen that there are details around the performance against budget notes, and it compares Council's financial plan expressed through its annual budget with the actual performance. So these are all the details that are available, and I would encourage everyone to have a look at the actual performance with respect to our budget. As a part of local government planning and reporting regulations, we are also required to provide any explanation for any material variances between councils, any material variances between the budget and the actual performance. So those variances that have a threshold of 10% or $100,000, they are further explained in the notes. So that's another way of finding out and getting some information about council's council's financial performance. What else? In the end, I just want to say that it's a very long and tedious process to go through this whole financial statement review and approval process. It includes auditing of the accounts, and it includes a lot of hard work, and it's a tedious process basically. So on that note, I would really like to thank our Audit and Risk Committee committee for the oversight, and also our council staff for their hard work in bringing this process to this stage where it is ready for signing by the relevant personnel, including the councillors and the CEO. So I think that's about it that I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. My notes were nearly identical to Councillor Abdullah. So all I'd like to say in terms of that is that because this particular statement is going to the Victoria Auditor General, during the Audit and Risk Committee management meeting that we had, that was stringently, the committee members stringently questioned and probed details of the financials through our financial director, through our CEO, and through finance staff, and more than happy with the progress of that, and more than happy to be able to be a signatory to this particular statement.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion passes unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 11 of the agenda, item 11.2, which is governance rules 2022. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'd like to move that we defer consideration of this agenda item until the October ordinary council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I second that motion, Mayor Saleh.
Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly to say that we had hoped that we would be ready to debate and implement the new governance rules and election period policy, but I feel that we need just a little bit more time to make sure that it is right for us to move forward with. This is an integral document, and I think it's okay for us to spend a little bit more time on it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saleh.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? And we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 15 of the agenda, item 11.3, and that's Council Plan 2021-2022 Quarter 4 Performance Report. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have one of you put that forward as a motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'd like to move the recommendation 11.3, Council Plan 2021-22, Quarter 4 performance report on page 15. I'll read out the recommendation. That the council note the 2021 to 2022 Quarter 4 progress report on the key performance indicators contained within the council plan.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I will second that motion, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. The council plan is a very important plan in both the council and the broader community. This report provides a third update on the council plan from 2021 to 25. The report provides an update on council's progress against the council plan, the key performance indicators for 2021 to Quarter 4. At this early stage of the council plan, 81 out of the 82 key performance indicators are on track. So in accordance with Section 90 of the Local Government Act 2020, council developed and adopted a 4-year council plan on the 25th of October 2021. And that was after extensive consultation with our community and a range of also providers providing input to that. The council plan includes the strategic objectives, the influence, the priorities of councillors during their term in office, and guides the decision-making and the allocation of resources to deliver outcomes and services to the community. Based on these outcomes of the deliverable engagement and community consultations, council identified 5 themes to describe what we are working towards in achieving the community. These themes are under the topics of community leadership, where we'll prioritise leadership in our community. Number 2, the social responsibility and wellbeing. We'll support the mental and physical health and wellbeing of all in our community. 3 was vibrant and diverse economy. We'll drive the visitor economy by growing visitor experiences and major events. Number 4 was infrastructure and technology, where we'll focus on the planning of our region's requirements to enable delivery of technology and infrastructure. And number 5, the environment and climate emergency, where we'll prioritise our environment, take urgent action to reduce emissions and waste in order to protect public health and create a region that mitigates to climate changes. The council plan sets the medium-term strategic direction for Greater Shepparton Council over the next 4 years. The council plan, 2021 to 25, describes the strategic objectives, methods of achieving the objectives, and indicators for measuring progress across the life of the plan. I'll get in before the bell goes. At this early stage of the council plan, 81 of the 82 key performance indicators are currently on track. Thank you, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor James.
Point of clarification, sorry, Mayor Sali. I just want to check, I believe when Councillor James read out the recommendation, he referred to the report as the performance report rather than progress report, which is a simple mistake any of us could make. And I just want to make sure it won't get caught up in a governance thing where we'll have to bring it back because it wasn't referred to correctly. We simply just...
Good point. Becky's.
Can Councillor James just confirm that it was
Yes.
a progress report?
Yes, I'm happy to confirm that.
It was the
Councillor Sali, it was a progress report instead of performance report.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. The indicators are on track. 81 out of 82 is an excellent result, but it is early. It indicates that we are doing more correct than we're not, and we are meeting benchmarks. That's fantastic, but we need to continue to do more. We need to maintain, we need to keep our foot on the pedal and drive hard to achieve 100% in KPIs if we can. That's what our aim is, and we are on track. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 19 of the agenda, which is item 11.4, Records and Information Management Policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion that the council adopt the Records and Information Management Policy as attached.
Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
The motion, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes, just briefly to essentially read from the report, information management and compliant record-keeping practices are fundamental to transparent and accountable governance and enables informed and consistent decision-making. It is the responsibility of Greater Shepparton City Council to ensure it facilitates the sound management of its records, information and data, and to ensure staff are engaged and aware of responsibilities and requirements in their everyday practices. This policy sets out how this will occur and establishes the framework for holistic, efficient and compliant management of records, information and data within the council. It is simply a good governance policy and I'm happy to endorse it today.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just very briefly. Obviously, this policy has been developed with the input of all facets of our organisation, so I'm pretty confident that we've got a really good outcome here.
Councillor Adam, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 23 of the agenda, item 11.5, August 2022 monthly financial report. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Sorry, I'll just bring this one up. Yes, I will move the recommendation on page 23 as a motion, and it says that the council receive and note the August 2022 monthly financial report.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I second that motion, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very quickly, these are early days of this financial year. This report presents council's actual performance, financial performance compared to the budget for the month ending 31st August 2022. And just a bit of a reminder that our 2022-2023 budget, it provided for an accounting surplus of $29.5 million with a revenue of $178.83 million and expenditure of $149.33 million. Now, the revenue, if it includes around $40 million of non-recurrent capital grants and $20,000 of capital monetary contributions, as well as $11.3 million of non-monetary capital contributions. So if you remove all these capital items from the accounting surplus, what we are left with is the true projected underlying operating result, which is a deficit. It's a deficit of $22.5 million in this case. So look, I'm not going to comment on each and every indicator, and it's just want to say that again, as I've said, that it is still very early days. We need to keep track of our expenses and our revenues and how we are tracking. But the report is pretty self-explanatory. I do not have any special comments on this report at this stage. But the details are there about why we are having some positive variances and some negative variances with respect to the budget. So feel free to read all the details, but that's about it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. Just reiterating that it is really important to have a monthly financial report come to the ordinary council meetings. It keeps us up on track as to where we're at and how we're progressing. When I read through it, the operating position, and as Councillor Abdullah alluded to the fact, it said that the 2022-2023 budget provided an accounting, remember this, accounting surplus of nearly $30 million, with revenue at nearly $180 million and expenditure at nearly $150 million. I got really excited when I read that, saying that nearly $30 million surplus. I'm thinking, what can I spend it on? But like a true Richmond supporter, I read the bottom line and came up very disappointed at the end. So excluding the capital items from the accounting surplus, an underlying operating result was a $22 million deficit. So, it's good to know where we're at, a snapshot. It is still early days, as Councillor Abdullah pointed out too, but the briefings that we receive from the council staff are vitally important, and we get this periodically, and it provides us with up-to-date financial data. And instead of being quarterly or 6 monthly, we know month to month how we're progressing, where we're at, and very important. So certainly second this particular motion.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 26 of the agenda, item 11.6, and that's contracts awarded under delegation August. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd like to move the recommendation 11.6, contracts awarded under delegation, August 2022, on page 26 of our agenda. I'll read out the recommendation that the Council, 1, note that no contracts were awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender or quotation process for the reporting period. And item number 2, note the requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I please have a councillor second that?
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. It's very easy on this one. It's stated, number 1, there's no contracts awarded under delegation. Number 2, there are 3 requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded. These include the first one being the SAM precinct, and number 2, Carabok Park Stage 2, and number 3, Shared Path Stage 3 on Echuca Road, Maribna.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, as Councillor James just said, nothing's been awarded. These 3 projects that are advertised but not yet awarded are all worthy. They're all good community projects, so I'm just looking forward to the next meeting potentially when they are awarded, so we can accept them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 28 of the agenda, item 11.7, council submission on electoral structure. Councillor, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to move the motion that the council, number 1, write to the Minister for Local Government stating its opposition to the introduction of a subdivided single-member ward electoral structure for Greater Shepparton. Number 2, request that no order in council be recommended by the Minister for Local Government under Section 15 of the Local Government Act 2022. And number 3, partner with Victorian councils to further advocate this position in recognition of the challenges a single ward structure would present in achieving council's aspirations of culturally and other diverse and gender equitable representation.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have a councillor
I'll
second?
second the motion, Mayor Sali. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Now, the 2019 Local Government Bill was released with a number of reforms to the Local Government Act 1989. And one of the key changes that was proposed was the implementation of a single-member ward structure for Victorian councils. And it now forms the basis for sections 15 and 16 of the Local Government Act 2020. In 2019, our council's submission to Municipal Association Victoria on this local actually opposed this change for Greater Shepparton. So the motion in front of us now reaffirms that position. It is directing council to write a letter to the local government minister stating our opposition to changing to a single membership ward structure and ask for retaining the unsubdivided structure of the municipality in the 2024 local government elections. The main reasons for this opposition are a few, basically, and I'll start with number 1, which is that a single membership ward structure can result in councillors having an inward-looking approach, where the focus is to advocate for the respective wards rather than advocating for the whole community, for the whole municipality. And then also that the representation based on the single membership ward can result in losing capable candidates from the ward with multiple competent candidates and electing an unsuitable candidate from the ward with less competent candidates. So in other words, it will force the voters in the wards with less competent candidates to use their votes for compromised outcomes. In addition to that, in a recent Advancing Women's Leadership Summit held in Melbourne, I had the opportunity to initiate a discussion on the issue of the single membership ward from gender equality perspective. During this discussion, there were concerns raised that the single membership ward structure could negatively impact the gender equality aspirations for the 2024 elections, as it can reduce the chances of women candidates from diverse communities. We are talking about communities from First Nation, from culturally and linguistically diverse communities, from LGBTI groups. And so some of those minority groups, women from these minority groups especially, can face barriers in getting elected to local government. Women from these diverse communities, they already have significant barriers in making them known outside their respective minority groups and accessing the mainstream vote base. So a single member ward structure can make it even harder for these women to contest and succeed when their potential voters are not necessarily confined to one particular ward. Every vote across the municipality can I please?
Can you see? Yeah, granted.
Thank you. Every vote across the municipality can count toward them getting over the line. So local government Victoria must ensure that a change to the single member ward structure does not add to the barriers women candidates face, particularly those from diverse communities. So with around 2 years before the next local government elections, we need to ensure that this issue is on the radar of the local government minister. And by writing a letter to the minister, council will advocate strongly for retaining the status quo of Greater Shepparton's electoral structure. Also, to be more effective, we are asking that it is crucial to run joint advocacy with councils transitioning to single-member wards in 2024, and ask the minister for a freeze to this plan or revert to the original structure. So that's what this motion is about. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. I think Councillor Abdullah pretty well covered it to a degree. However, I just want to add a couple of comments. I think we're probably just part of a handful of councils remaining in Victoria that are not subdivided. I think the key to this whole recommendation is the word subdivided. I mean, we're not here to further divide our community. I think we're about trying to keep ourselves whole in that sense. So our current structure, I believe, encourages, if not demands, complete community engagement and commitment from our councillors. If we were representing separate wards as such, that's the terminology they used to use, I don't know whether they still use that now, yeah, as someone said, it's inward looking, then that would create all sorts of issues, I think, in the future, which first-hand knowledge of other councils, I've heard of different situations where you've got councillors pitting themselves against each other for petty reasons to a degree. I think as a councillor, you should represent the whole municipality. As I said, it demands you to pay attention, focus on everyone's needs and try and resolve them, deliver those needs as best as possible. So I fully support this. I'm not confident that it'll actually result in anything. However, you'll never know unless you try. So I support it.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I suppose that it begs the question, do single ward councils get the best person to represent their area or not only their ward, but their municipality in whole? We are writing to oppose what we have flagged as a single ward, as a single councillor wards. And I think the appetite from a number of other councils, which Councillor Abdullah spoke of, but I've spoken to other councillors and councils in the area as well, that they're looking to move back to the open format that we currently enjoy here. And that is, whether that be a multi-councillor ward or even no wards at all. And it does provide, as is highlighted, a better representation for perhaps minority groups, but particularly cultural groups and diverse groups that we're looking at. So I fully endorse this particular recommendation.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you. Really, just to reiterate what my fellow councillors are saying, I think it's important that we provide the community why we believe this is the right way to proceed. For me, it's around three key reasons. The first being that I think that our current 6 tonight councillors are the most representative that we've ever had here in Greater Shepparton. I think that we cover a very wide range of our the community that exists across Greater Shepparton, and I think that by moving to single-member wards, we put that at risk. I think it would undo a lot of the positive work that we have achieved by having such a diverse and eclectic group around the table. I also think that council as an organisation has a role to serve all of Greater Shepparton, and I argue that councillors also have that role to serve the entirety of Greater Shepparton. It should be about the values and passion and topics that each councillor brings to the table, not just where they call home that they would fight for 4 years. And the final reason being that I think it should be up to individual councillors having the right to decide what is right for their municipality. All municipalities are different. They will have different needs between single-member wards, multi-member wards, or unsubdivided. And I very much support our right to put forward and advocate for what we think our best position would be. And I think it's better to have a position rather than no position. So I'm very supportive of putting this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? I'll just have some closing comments, and obviously it's easy for me to back up the comments that have been made by my fellow councillors, and I fully support this. I mean, it makes no sense for us to even consider supporting a ward system in our community. It defeats the purpose of what we're trying to achieve, which is that inclusive approach and that full representation across our whole municipality would be very disruptive, not only for the current councillor, well, for councillors as well as organisation as well. So I support our position of maintaining our current structure, and I look forward to putting something together to reaffirm our position, not from our perspective, but also through Regional Cities Victoria and any other platform that we can to fully advocate for what is the best for Greater Shepparton. So I look forward to getting this formalised. So thank you, Councillor Abdullah, for putting this forward. If there's nothing else, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 31 of the agenda, item 12.1, River Connect Implementation Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion that the council adopt the revised terms of reference for the River Connect Implementation Advisory Committee as attached.
Councillor Spinks, can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second the motion, Mayor Sally, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Adam. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Just briefly, we've talked about River Connect quite a bit. It comes up all the time. It's an incredible committee, both in the work that it achieves and also the collaborative approach. It is a partnership. It is really a partnership effort, and we're all aware of the great things it achieves, the great things it fights to do, the fact that we have one of our great rivers going right through our municipality is something we should be incredibly proud of, and we should be working to protect and enhance and support. And I think that the connection between humans and nature became as clear as crystal clear during the COVID experience, but certainly should not be something we take for granted. And with that is the fact that the committee exists, and when you have a committee, you have a terms of reference. So the time has come that we review it, and there's just been a couple of small changes made to the terms of reference. I'll just quickly run through them. The terms of reference have been reviewed and altered to note that applications for community representatives will be reviewed by a panel consisting of one of each of the program funders, Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority and Greater Shepparton City Council, as well as River Connect officers. And the panel will make recommendations to council on the selected representatives for appointment. As well, it notes that in the case of the chair or deputy chair's absence or inability to attend or perform their duties, an acting chair may be appointed by a majority vote of members present in the meeting. And an additional change was required that due to the vague quorum requirements regarding the membership for up to 2 councillors, following consultation and guidance from the governance team, this was amended to note in the instance of the attendance of 2 councillors that only 1 collective vote may be made. So it's really just a tightening up of procedures and making sure that we update our terms of reference to be the best it can be at the time, and I'm very happy to support it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
I don't think I can add anything further to that.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. The River Connect program is essential to our region and our environment and our connectivity too as well. It's very important for our community. The committee has key stakeholders providing advice on a range of environmental and other associated outcomes too as well. Terms require a review every 3 years that reflect the committee and also the stakeholders in regards to future direction for our community and people involved in our community too. So as a past member of this committee, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I support the recommended changes as identified by the advisory committee. You know, there are a number of key personnel on this committee who have had lots and lots of connections to this community for quite some time. They provide accurate information to the committee, and I think positive in regards to where we're going in the future directions of our all-important waterways and everything that connects with the environment too as well. So I fully support the changes identified by the advisory committee, and also those key changes in regards to if council representatives aren't there, well then we have enough wisdom on that community which will carry us through. So I support that.
Very good, thank you, Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. We now go to page 35, 36 of the agenda, which is item 12.2, proposed lease of land for affordable housing, kids undercover. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor move that as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Councillor Sally. I would like to move the recommendation to a motion as it is printed on page 35 and 36 of the agenda.
Would you like to read that?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a councillor second?
Mayor Sally?
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, yes. So this is a matter that came before us previously. The proposal itself is for a, let me just make sure I get it right of whether it is social or affordable housing. It is for a housing proposal that will host a number of young people. I'm going to absolutely make a mess of this. So Kids Undercover are an organisation that are proposing to use a council asset for a project that would provide housing for young people experiencing homelessness. So it's people who, young people who come out of the care system and need a roof over their heads to get into the world. The Kids Undercover model provides temporary relocatable housing to accommodate 6 young people and 2 live-in mentors, and it would be for approximately 10 years. So we had already gone through this process to put it out to consultation in a North Shepparton location. Through that consultation, various factors came back, and in the end, it was the proposal was withdrawn from that location and is now being proposed at an alternative location in Perryvale Drive in Shepparton. So down the other end, we're heading to South Shepparton this time. So this will we'll restart this process. It will go out to community consultation once again with all of the local residents. I do feel that this is a more appropriate location. That's a lot closer to a lot of essential assets and essential services. It's a much larger block. It is a council, the council asset was being used or was intended to be used for green space, and the block is actually large enough to allow for that to still happen, as well as having this proposal possibly take place there. So it's actually a wonderful opportunity to have a win-win, better utilising that space and also to provide this housing for 6 young people. So today what we're talking about is both acknowledging that we are closing off the process of the original community consultation and then reopening it with this new block of land. So the community consultation will start again. We will put it out to the community to, I suppose, see what everybody thinks, and to once again ask for people to provide any parameters or considerations that we need to take into account for this proposal. I think we all know where the crisis of housing and of affordable housing and opportunities for our young people to get into housing is at. So we need to be considering all of these opportunities and truly every opportunity that is available to us to consider. So I am very happy to, yes, please. Very happy to put this out to community to see what the Perryvale Drive area think of this and to hopefully have some positive outcomes come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor Saleh, and I'll just pick up with Councillor Spinks there too. So the agenda item is proposed lease of land for affordable housing. So there you go, Kids Undercover. And as you alluded to, look, it came to us at the ordinary council meeting in May of this year that council had resolved, amongst other things, to provide in principle support for this proposal. So the location has changed, but the proposal hasn't in terms of that. Just to reiterate what that particular organisation is, Kids Undercover, it's a not-for-profit organisation focused on delivering the unique combination of studio accommodation and education scholarships, which is really important, as a practical and proven strategy in preventing homelessness. So I look forward to it's a very sound model in terms of, and it's been used before. Very much look forward to it going out and getting public consultation from the next phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. Just want to add my commentary. I support anything that ultimately delivers housing for vulnerable people or people who are homeless or houseless. Yeah, this is a good process. They've identified this new site, or they have. It's a significantly larger block, or a large block. I think it's in an area, as Councillor Spinks stated, that will hopefully not attract much objection. No doubt it may. However, I think it's an ideal site. And I really support it. As I said, it's a 10-year term. It's creating 2 jobs. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but 2 jobs is 2 jobs. So I think it's a win-win-win for everyone. Hopefully this will get across the line in the sense that it will be developed and it'll provide homes for houses for quite a large number of young people. We support it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize and basically say that this need is huge. We know if the need for affordable housing across the board is really huge. We know that young people in this particular project, basically it's in to address the housing needs of young people who are at risk of becoming homeless. So it's a fantastic initiative. This project has my full support. I also want to say that, council, I'm very pleased to see our council's role in facilitating these projects because it's a collaborative effort. It needs the support and collaboration of different parties, right from the project, delivery organization to anyone who can support in this one. So yeah, it's overall, I'm very happy that this project is still going ahead despite some hiccups in the initial phases of the project, and I'm looking forward to seeing the consultation outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? James.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. Just very briefly, just to say that the thing that I like about this project too as well is that the units or the if your studio apartments are actually relocatable too as well. So, and I think that's can prove to be a success for our community too as well. Because if it's not working at that location, it then can be relocated to somewhere else too as well to cater for the shifts and changes in our community. So, but the fact that it's also studio apartments, I'd like to see what that actually does, how that does cater for our community in regards to and particularly that age group. But the fact also, another factor too as well, is actually got mentors, there's members that are going to be there on site to help in the supervision and the support of the students, of the people that are be living in those units as well. But that simple fact that it is relocatable too as well. And I think that's the part which is I'm totally in support of.
Thank you, Councillor James. I'll just finish with a couple of comments and obviously support what's been said and the fact that, you know, for unfortunate circumstances, the previous location at Dean Court wasn't supported, but at least they've progressed to find another suitable location with support of council. Councillor James highlighted there that I think this is important, that not only is it for our vulnerable kids out there as well, that, you know, you've got your 2 live-in mentors as well, which, you know, provides a lot of needed support as well. So that gives a sense of security for those using, requiring the services that are in there as well, and that's an important need as well. So I hope this is a successful outcome. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 43 of the agenda, item 12.3, which is consideration of findings and recommendations of the Greater Shepparton Affordable Housing Strategy, Houses for People 2020, and audit of council-owned land in Shepparton, Mooroopna and Kyalla. Councillors, there are 2 parts to this recommendation, and we will deal with part 1 first. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
Okay, I would like to move the recommendation on page 43, recommendation part 1, as a motion, which says that the council note the resolution of council at the council meeting held on 21st June 2022 and decline the request from Beyond Housing and Wintringham, received on 21st October 2021, seeking the sale of the Edward Moore and Nixon Streets car park in Shepparton.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have someone second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. This very briefly, because this is simply a procedural motion to formalize the resolution made by council in our June meeting, in a June council meeting, to decline the request from Beyond Housing and Wintringham that was received on 21st October 2021, seeking the sale of the Edward Moore and Nixon Streets car park in Shepparton. So there's nothing more to say. The resolution was already was made in a previous council meeting, and this particular motion is only formalizing the request, the decline of that request.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say, we cannot state strongly enough that this is purely a governance motion to close the loop of the decision that was made at the June council meeting. There is nothing further to be decided today. It is simply noting and finalising that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillors, we will now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we remain on page 43 for item 12.3 part 2. That also goes over on page 44 as well. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Yes, Ali, I'd like to put forward the following recommendation in regards to that.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy.
The recommendation being that the Council 1 confirm Council's support for the findings and recommendations of the Greater Shepparton Affordable Housing Strategy, Houses for People 2020, including an audit and community consultation of council-owned assets to be conducted to identify potential council land holdings, underutilised buildings and air right opportunities, i.e. above at-grade car parking, that may be suitable for affordable housing purposes. The 2, note the findings of the Greater Shepparton City Council Social Housing Site Options Assessment, June 2022, prepared by SEMS Advisory and Project Management Proprietary Limited, which assessed an appropriateness of 16 sites across Kyalla, Mooroopna and Shepparton for affordable housing purposes. 3, undertake a community engagement process in accordance with the Greater Shepparton City Council Community Engagement Policy 2021 to seek the community's feedback on any potential future sale, lease or gift of council-owned land for affordable housing at the south east corner block of 84 to 90 High Street, Shepparton, basically being the High and Rose Streets car park, and that 4 notes that following the completion of the consultation process, any submissions received will be considered by council at a future scheduled council meeting.
And thank you, Councillor Brophy, bear with me, what was that, Peter? See if it gets on. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion?
I'm happy to second that. Sally?
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Yes. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that nearly 50 sites were audited to see what potential council-owned land holdings or buildings may be suitable. The audit was extensive and highlighted very few wholly owned council land that is available. It came down to a handful of appropriate sites, contrary to what most people out in the community believe. I make reference also to the Affordable Housing Strategy of 2020 that pushes council to partner with, advocate for and provide options to address the housing crisis that we are currently in. And it has expedited in the last few years and will only get worse. We have had 3 social affordable housing projects this year come before us, with 2 supported, yet not one single roof over a head has been established. That is a travesty. Land prices are through the roof, and all types of housing are at a premium, let alone those for the most vulnerable. And demographically, those of the most vulnerable are, believe it or not, are now women, mainly single over 50 years of age. That really throws out the stereotype out the window of those that are needing social housing the most. So I believe if we want inner city living and greater density housing, then we need to ensure that we put forward to the public a recommendation that will be supported, that after community consultation on a selected potential site, it has the endorsement and becomes successful. So successful that either other council-owned inner city properties are the next option, or private CBD landowners see this as a real opportunity and catalyst to embark on providing inner city affordable housing. We need it as a community, those looking for housing need it, and we can set the environment by supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Just to recap on what Councillor Brophy's reiterated there, it reflects the site options as well. We had the property group do the assessment on the appropriateness of the 16 sites across our community, both that's Kayala, Maribna and Shepparton too as well. It's also accommodating that, they're taking in regards to the community engagement and the consultation which occurred back in June, but it also reflects some strong indication on a location which Councillor Brophy had just mentioned before. But it picks up number 3, and it also gives you a clear indication on what some of the preferences is, and it also doesn't change anything in regards to the item. So that's it. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor James.
Mayor Sali, can I move an amendment to this motion?
What would you like to do, Councillor Abdullah?
I would like to add another point under number 3 of this motion under discussion, which says that the council to undertake a community engagement process inclusive of all the affected parties, including those currently experiencing affordable housing issues.
Yeah, I accept that to be tabled as an amendment. So what we'll need someone to do, can I please have a councillor second that amendment?
I will second that. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, quickly, the reason that I propose this amendment is for council to ensure and make a deliberate effort to make the community consultation more inclusive The consultation should engage the broader community, including those who will be the beneficiaries of such affordable housing projects. I also want to highlight that the previous consultation processes on affordable housing were not so inclusive and not inclusive enough, as they did not represent a balanced representation of the wider community. Hence my proposal to amend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Just to say, it would be very easy for us to sit back and just expect for this particular point to happen within the community engagement process, which council, it is not a criticism of the council processes, but it is simply what we saw during all of our last consultations. It was severely lacking from a very important part of our community that would be directly benefiting from these particular this particular topic. So I don't think that putting it, or I do think that putting it implicitly into the motion is an important detail to just absolutely guarantee that we hear from those we most need to, as well as all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the amendment? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the amendment? We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Amendment carried, I suppose. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that will now form part of the motion, and we will pick up where we left off. And that was, I was asking a councillor are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion?
May I move another amendment before going ahead?
Absolutely, you're entitled to two, so please.
Thank you. So my second amendment is, amendment that I'm proposing is to add to this motion points 1B and C and points 3B and C of the recommendation included in the distributed and the printed agenda.
Okay, so let me...
And I've circulated the printout. It's all written here as a reference.
Unfortunately, Councillor Abdullah, I can't accept that due to change. So we will pick up the existing motion as to where we left off, and I'll ask the councillor to speak against, if there are any councillors that would like to speak against the motion.
Can I speak against the motion?
Councillor Abdullah, thank you.
Thank you. So we have unmet demand for social housing. The land is one of the critical elements to meet this demand. Land is in short supply, expensive, and makes housing projects financially unviable. Hence, we see developers' inability and low appetite to develop these houses with 1 to 3 bedrooms, for instance. So to make the affordable housing projects viable, developers want the land at no cost or minimum cost, or else their profit margins will not be afforded by the low-income households. Tonight, I'm speaking against the motion under discussion to highlight the two main shortcomings of this motion, and I'll explain these shortcomings now. Point number 1, the office's report and the recommendation for item 12.3 part 2 printed on page 43 of the agenda included crucial points that are now missing from the motion tabled by Councillor Brophy. Council's affordable housing strategy included many actions to enable and facilitate the delivery of affordable housing in Greater Shepparton. And one of the actions was to audit Council's land holdings, airspace, and the underutilized assets that can be used for affordable housing. Based on the audit findings, officers had suggested consultation on the future sale of 3 most appropriate sites for affordable housing in the CBD. These are council car parks in Rowe Street, Edward Street, and Welsford Street. All the other audited sites have various reasons due to which these cannot be readily available and are not appropriate for affordable housing. And the report included in the agenda has the details if anyone is interested to see why those sites are not appropriate. My objection to this motion is that the community has a right to see the full findings of the audit of council lands, including the finding that there are 3 most appropriate sites in the CBD that the council could consider for sale, lease, or gift for affordable housing. Can I ask, why is the community being denied the right to have a say on all 3 priority sites? I want to understand how a decision has been made to exclude the other 2 sites from this consultation, given that they are all close to services and shopping centers and they are well serviced. What makes us so sure that one site, that is the Rose Street site, is better than the other two, without going out for a community-wide consultation, particularly with those who need those houses? I'm disappointed to see this take on the issue of affordable housing, not including all three sites in the current motion, is against the principle of transparency and good governance, where the community is not given the complete picture of the availability of affordable housing appropriate sites. And the community is being denied the right to have a say on all three priority sites through this motion. And my second point, can I please have more? Thank you. Thank you. And my second point for speaking against this motion is another shortcoming of the motion when compared to the officer's recommendation. The council did a power of work in developing the affordable housing strategy, but the last round of affordable housing community consultation process overlooked some important decisions set by the strategy about the affordable housing development, which may involve a level of clustering and concentration of affordable houses. In my opinion, any conversation must acknowledge the conditions under which cluster and concentration of social housing are permissible, according to our strategy. Therefore, Council must reconfirm the support of these key findings and recommendations included in the affordable housing strategy. These are essential points to set the context for future affordable housing proposals and community consultation. Tonight, I'm against this motion under consideration as it has conveniently removed two important dot points highlighting the qualifiers for the concentration and cluster approach of affordable housing according to our endorsed strategy. I would like to know why this would not be a missed opportunity to instill confidence in the public about the appropriateness of such models under certain conditions. We have a crisis of homelessness and lack of affordable housing, which demands us to be not so narrowly focused and consider as many options as possible. Is it not reasonable to encourage and enable the community to look at these options favorably rather than outright rejecting these outcomes? If attention is not paid to these points, which have been omitted in the motion, we will be forever going round and round in circles, wasting Council's resources and time, and getting an outright rejection of some viable development approaches to affordable housing through the consultation process. So on the basis of these two shortcomings, I will not vote for this motion. I will vote against this motion. As for the community consultation of the Rose Street, I hope that we understand that the reality is that these sites will not solve all the problems of our 1,600 households that are sitting on the housing register. But these sites will help meet the demand in a small way. And we need to understand that there's a dire need for affordable housing in our region, and the CBD locations which are well serviced are really the most appropriate sites, some of the most appropriate sites. And in the end, I just want to emphasize that we need to understand that the gravity of the lack of social or affordable housing in our region.
Sorry, that is time. Councillor Abdullah, I'm happy for you to have one closing remark if you want.
So the gravity of this need is far more critical than the desire by a section of our community to avoid the loss of car parks or the stigma attached to the affordable housing. So in the end, I just want to conclude by saying that I am against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. This isn't going to be quite as poised as Councillor Abdullah's commentary. I cannot believe the hypocrisy and almost willful getting in the way of providing affordable housing that this particular motion is providing. For 9 months, the councillors around this table, the community out there have shouted at us to do an audit of our land, to see what we have available and to put it out there as alternative parcels of land. We heard it over and over and over again. And so the council did it. It was a part of the affordable housing strategy. In a lot of ways, this process should have come before the other proposals that came to us. But it's here now, and through this consultation, through this audit, we have identified that the only viable pieces of land that we have are these 3 pieces of airspace above a car park. For very valid reasons, all other sites have been dismissed. And when you read through the report, it is absolutely valid for each of those pieces. The only parcels, as an exception to that rule, are larger parcels of land that will not be available for a couple of years. And we all know this is a crisis moment where we need to make a decision and make progress in some way. We have to, it is a matter of transparency that we put all 3 of these parcels of land to the community to be considered. The idea that we would decide on one parcel instead of the others has completely taken the community's ability to comment away from them. And regardless of the outcome of that particular parcel of land, we would then have to go back and do it with the other parcels of land anyway. That is how it works when you want to do community consultation. And we do not make decisions on behalf of community when they have the capacity to use their own voice. So we need to get out of the way, stop wasting council time, energy and resources on an outcome that potentially, that needs to go to community. And to be very frank, if the outcome of this is that there is no, that the Greater Shepparton community just does not want affordable housing in the CBD, then so be it. Then we get out of the way so that we can move on to other actions in the affordable housing strategy. But we have to let this process play out. We have to give it the opportunity to achieve what it needs to achieve. Because what we actually might achieve on the other end of this is 3 parcels of land we can use. Over the last 9 months, we've had 3 different, very different proposals come to us. One didn't get past consultation, one did, and then it fell through from funding, and one of them has gone through the entire consultation process and needed to be started again. In 9 months, we've achieved nothing, which I do not like saying, but it is the reality that there are no more roofs overhead than we started with 9 months ago. An extension, please.
Yes,
thank you.
granted.
We cannot, I think, we have to have taken away from this past 9 months that we cannot put all of our eggs in one basket. I think the community have seen that through, even when it did get through council, it still fell through. We are the first of many hurdles these proposals need to go through. And we don't even have a proposal on the table for this. We're just talking about the use of the land. So we have to give all of these sites the opportunity to go out there so we can ask, what are the, there's no designs attached to these. There's no people that can be stigmatized about who's going into it. We have to put it out there and say, you know, what are the parameters we can put it under? What are the conditions we need to be considerate of? All 3 parcels of land are only similar in that they're in the CBD, which in many of our strategies is a great location supported by the fact that it is right in the centre, it has every amenity possible. But then each of these parcels of land, these 3 parcels of land are so unique. They all have different neighbours, they all have different aspects, they all have different streets that they're on. So we need to hear each of their pros, cons and otherwise, and we need to put it all out there at once. We need to make this a big deal. We all know how important, essential crisis moment this conversation is. And when it comes to council being able to actually deliver land, this is all we have available. So we have to do everything we can in this moment to fully take control of this opportunity and lead, because we know that community is going to be experiencing stigma, that it is going to be an uphill battle to achieve any of these goals. We've seen it, we're not creating anything new. Other councils have built these things. We're just doing it for the first time in Shepparton. So we as leaders around this table need to be bold enough to make that step. And all we're asking is that we put 3 instead of 1 options out there today. The only other comment I want to make is the idea of clustering. It is so subjective. In our heads and the way we've talked about it over the last 9 months, the idea of a cluster is a group of low socioeconomic, insert all of the negative connotations, group of people that are put together. But the reality is, what we have witnessed is that when you put a large number of wealthy people together that can use their influence to stop these sort of things, I'd argue that's also a negative cluster of people. It is a lack of diversity across our community that is creating the issues that we're seeing today. The lack of housing diversity, the lack of housing affordability. It is an essential crisis across our community, and we need to be diversifying all over our community. We are a very diverse group of people that live here, and we all deserve to access all parts of our community. The CBD, I argue, is for everybody, and all three of these sites have great merit if we let them get out there for the community to have a look at. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other?
Councillor Sali, can I move a foreshadow motion? I would like to move a foreshadow motion.
You want to foreshadow a motion?
Foreshadow motion.
Yeah,
Yes, those are the right words. Thank you.
I got it.
Pleasure.
Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'm going to be a lot less poised and eloquent than the previous two. I think you've pretty well covered all the components that I want to also cover. Basically, look, the need for affordable housing is clear, it's present, and it's actually urgent. Has been for quite a while. As much as I don't want to speak against Councillor Brophy's motion, because I'd love nothing better than to nominate a site, get on with the job, put it out there, get one of the organisations to deliver a project in a shorter space as possible. Realistically, even if this motion got across, I can't see anything happening for at least 12 months, if not 18 months, if not longer. So in the interest of transparency, which I need to note that you both said, which is correct, we can't be predetermining community response to consultation. We don't know. I believe that the three should go out. I also believe there'll be objections to all of them. Just history dictates that. Some will be less than the others. We may be surprised. Some of the others that we think may not be as popular may be more popular. So it's not our position to predetermine consultation. So that's one component of that motion that I don't agree with. As I said, it's got to be transparent. I now have my own personal opinion and bias as to where I believe is the appropriate site, and it probably lines up with your motion, Councillor Brophy, for sure. But I think the previous councillor's comments was correct. We can't predetermine. It's got to go out to the community. It may delay the process another 1 month, 2 months, possibly. And I believe councillors, and I wasn't part of the initial decision and the issue you had 6 months ago, roughly, or 5 months ago, and I'm sure all councillors attracted a lot of feedback from the community, and I'm sure some of that wasn't positive. A lot of it was probably negative. However, as a councillor, I think that's part of our role, is to be subjected to consultation and the responses, negative and positive, from the community. So you're going to get that anyway, even with the one site listed or the three. You're going to get that negative commentary, I believe. You may get slightly more in this instance, but we may be surprised. You may get some support that you weren't counting on. So for that reason, I don't support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Before I go to Councillor Brophy's right to reply, I'll just have some comments regarding my support of Councillor Brophy's motion, which obviously sort of narrows things down in regards to the Rose Street site. You know, the reality is that, you know, we get caught up in speaking about the reasons why we're offering this parcel of land, and that's important, but this is for consideration of a council-owned, community-owned asset, and I want to see the future of that and many other community-owned assets as well. This parcel of land is, in my opinion, limited from a commercial perspective. It's surrounded by a significant car park that effectively, that if this is supported and it is successful down the track, that, you know, it doesn't jeopardise that whole parcel of land. Yes, absolutely, there is a sense of urgency. There's no question about that, but the reality is these are generational, these are forever decisions we make here tonight. This isn't a tick and flick and we deal with the issue right now and then we don't have to worry about it in the future. It's an evolving situation, it's not going to go away, but the priority is to get a project underway and get land in front of the community, in particular this parcel here. Let's hear the feedback. No doubt there would be objections. I'd be concerned if there wasn't. You know, it's important, it's a community-owned asset and we need to hear from community as to why this would be appropriate or not to go beyond the next point. But I do support it. I like Rose Street for the reasons that it ticks the boxes of close to the key services, which is an important factor. We've obviously going to have a redeveloped CBD, and that's important that that can be all connected together as well. So I do support Councillor Brophy's motion. If there's nothing else, councillors, we will now go to the vote. Oh, sorry, right a reply for Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Firstly, can I say that I want, and I think we all want, to have social and affordable housing to succeed. I think we have a different way of maybe looking at how to get there, but it's what we all ultimately all want to achieve. And so therefore I do really appreciate the comments for or against in regards to that. I'll pick up on a couple of points that Councillor Abdullah had put forward. One being the crucial points that she felt that were taken out of the original recommendation. And I felt that they were superfluous in terms of that they were already contained in the affordable housing strategy, which I did highlight in my supporting comments in regards to that. And that they weren't to form part of a recommendation because they're already in the affordable housing strategy. More of a procedural thing than anything else with that one. Secondly, in regards to the community and the potential of them being denied the right to have consultation on a number of different properties, I felt that they're not being denied that in the fact that they're given an opportunity here to focus on one parcel of land that, if successful, will be the pathway to greater affordable housing in the CBD. If that is successful in this particular one, then the others will flow on and will be looked at accordingly. The other sites that were in question, they may well be Greater Shepparton City Council owned sites, but they may also have a greater commercial development or opportunity come along and combine that with social housing and mixed housing as well. I've been hearing from a lot of experts in the last couple of weeks in regards to presentations, and mixed housing is certainly the way to go, and I think we spoke about that at length. It is a crisis, but in planning is also not a knee-jerk reaction to it. It has to be, in planning for social housing, affordable housing, it has to be considered, it has to be incremental, and it has to be sustainable. That's my right of reply.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? So that's 3-3. That obviously gives me the casting vote. I'll maintain my position and vote in support of the motion.
Division.
Have division?
Do you want to try as well?
Vote again. All those in favour? Councillor Sarley, Councillor Brophy, Councillor James. Those against? Councillor Abdullah, Councillor Spinks, Councillor Adam, and then obviously the casting vote, mayoral vote, was myself, Councillor Sarley. Thank you. Motion passed. Page 56 of the agenda, item 12.4, which is the draft Shepparton Inner North Local Area Traffic Management Plan, August 2022. Councillor James has a conflict. Thank you.
We've got a quorum, haven't we yet?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor James. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion as it is printed on page 56 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a councillor second that?
I'll second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, yes. So this is in response to the, without beating around the bush, it is in response to the new traffic conditions that are located around the Greater Shepparton Secondary College. So it was always the intention of council to do this traffic management plan. When it was first, it began prior to the start of the school year, and there was an initial consultation process that had some immediate feedback on the way it was going to go. We all knew that it was going to suddenly have an awful lot more traffic and human beings passing through an area that perhaps was not originally designed for it. And so we had to come up with solutions to mitigate that and make sure everybody involved was as safe as they could possibly be. From the initial consultation process, there was some immediate changes that could be made, and council immediately implemented those changes and saw almost immediate improvements. I think that all credit goes to council for hearing the community and making those changes and responding. And the proof was in the pudding when we saw that it instantly, almost instantly created positive change in the way that traffic and pedestrians flowed through that space. It was always the intention that this was going to be a fluid and adaptable process where we could see how it was going, make changes, and change as we needed to. So now is the end of the larger traffic management plan that has been undertaken over the past, I suppose, 6 months. We're at the end of term 3. We've been able to watch how the traffic moves through the area. So we've expanded it to include quite a large number of the local streets. The idea was to reduce the impact on those local residential streets as much as possible, while also making sure that traffic was moving through and that pedestrians were as safe as possible amongst all of the mayhem. And from the local area traffic management plan, there have been 29 different recommendations that have come out of it. So quite a large number of things that we can do to improve the safety and that considers the needs of pedestrians, cyclists and road vehicles, including cars and buses. There's a lot of people using this space. So for those 29 different recommendations, it does come to a cost of a little over $1 million. Sorry, I've got to flip through a lot of pictures. A bit over $1 million. And that is something that down the track we would have to work out budget for. But the next stage from here is that a public consultation will now go out for the local traffic plan. Extension, please.
Granted.
Thank you. So it is kind of consultation over consultation over consultation, but that's a good thing because the local residents are undergoing quite a change to the little streets that they bought on, and they deserve to be involved in the discussion the entire way along, as well as all of the students, teachers and otherwise that are at the school trying to use that space as well, and the various other schools that are around the space, and traffic moving from also, it's a busy moving space. So now we'll put it back out to consultation once again to get the feedback on the local traffic management plan and on the 29 recommendations that have been put in. It is a myriad of different possibilities of what we can do to improve the space. My only criticism is I think that it didn't take into account the south side of the railway tracks, where I know a lot of traffic is suddenly moving from South Shepparton into that space, that side of town. So and moving through that industrial area. So I do think that's something for consideration in the future. But as that wasn't the scope of the local traffic management plan, I'm certainly not going to criticise the plan itself for that potential leaving out. But either way, the point of the motion being, I very much support this. I think the plan, local area management plan, has been very well done, and now I'm very interested to see it go out for community consultation and to hear back from the community what their thoughts are on the recommendations, so we can start making more improvements.
Great, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. And just following on from Councillor Spinks, she eloquently put all that together. Thank you very much. But look, it has been surprising that the alterations to accommodate Greater Shepparton Secondary College, the buses, the traffic, the students, the staff, the industrial transport and supporting the local students has been in the main worked really well. And that's been surprising because I didn't think that it was going to work as well as it has. I'm sure that there are still slight teething problems, and we're probably 9 months in now in the school year. Inadvertently, and probably unfortunately, it's probably, by the alterations that have been made, has probably spread some of the congestion and the rat running to perhaps some neighbouring streets as well, like Corio, Knight Street, etc. And with some more alterations, that'll be looked at and see what can be done about that. There were a couple of points that I know Councillor Spinks raised in terms of ones that I've been looking at particularly is heading up north down Horden Street, a right turn into Feshty Street can make it very difficult, and that can be sort of looked at to be fixed up, and also particularly issues in and around Norris Court. But, you know, we have a draft plan, and that is in the main, out to consideration for the local residents, the industry, and to the secondary college. And I would certainly look forward to the feedback on this particular precinct. And I'd also like to take my hat off and kudos to Director Christo and her team in being able to come up with what they've come up. It was at short notice to some degree, and to be able to put in what they've been put in and the diligent work that they've done is absolutely amazing. So thank you for that.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I just want to divert our attention to the fact this motion is about noting the conclusion of the community engagement process, noting that council will come back to council on any feedback. So rather than comment on the actual data that was contained within the briefing we had, I may mention one particular one. To say there's no teething problems, yeah, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is now. The school is there. We have to make arrangements to make this work. But it's more than one occasion I have been on Balaclava Road, backed up to Boucher Street, turning left onto Wyndham Street from Balaclava. That's nearly 1.5 kilometres. More than one occasion. So that's an issue. I don't know how this will resolve this, but I'm sure they've done a lot of work. Well, I know they've done a lot of work. It was all triggered by the school, so it's there in front of us. We have to deal with it. I'm interested to see what the response is from the community, because there's probably a lot of situations that we're not aware of yet, personally, and that'll all come to the fore. And then, no doubt, our planners can react to that and hopefully tweak this and make it as workable as possible. So today's about noting it, putting it out to the community. When we get it back, then we'll have to digest all that feedback and hopefully come up with a plan that will ultimately deliver the best possible income. In any case, I support this motion.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Before we go to the vote, I'll just add some supportive comments around it as well, that, you know, it's obviously been alluded to that we were all expecting things to not be as efficient as what they are in that space. I mean, I frequent it every day, and it's unbelievable. Dare I say, you're sort of waiting for it to get worse, and it hasn't to date, which is good. And no doubt pre-works to the Verney Road, Balaclava road intersection, you know, the lights that were done there a couple of years ago have supported that, and anything else that's been done in place. But yeah, I know Councillor Brophy alluded to the fact of the staff have done a power of work to accommodate changes virtually straight away to minimise any of those ongoing teething issues that we face. And then moving forward, once we get back some feedback from community regarding those key priorities that obviously have a significant budget aligned to them as well, then we try and work through what the most important ones are and all the bits and pieces that go together to accommodate those needs. So yeah, other than that, I think it's working well at the moment. So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Can some, yeah. Thanks,
Josh.
Get it right.
He's gone home.
Did you go home?
He's back.
Thought you went home.
Nearly close to him.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillors, we now go to page 78 of the agenda, item 12, East Overland Flow Urban Flood Study, March 2017. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Please have someone put that forward as a motion. Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a count? Oh, sorry. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion that the council note the finalisation of the Shepparton East Overland Flow Urban Flood Study, March 2017, by the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just really briefly on this one, it has been the year 2017 might catch people a little off guard. It is a slow process to create these documents, but it's important that we have the best available data to enable our planning decision-making and make sure that we're preparing the best information for residents as well. Ultimately, this is a GB-CMA document, but it does inform the work that many different organisations do, and it's essential to many of the council planning strategies, and it will eventually go into the planning scheme as well. And I know that there is a little bit of angst when we see flood studies come out. We all know what the insurance landscapes look like and various different topics that come up around flood studies. But I ask, what's the alternative? Is the alternative to have no data? I think that while it may not be, but there may sometimes be small changes, and people who are affected by these flood studies coming out, we need to know. We need to know where our water's going to go. Especially right now, we happen to be on the brink of quite a bit of rain over summer, and we know all of our rivers are full and catchments are full. So while, again, it is a slow process to pull these documents together, it is important that we have the latest and best available data to work with. So I'm very happy to really only note this. It's not our document, but it is something that we will use for the work that we do. And thank, I suppose, the Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority for the work that they've done.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, thank you, Mayor Sarley. This is not easily, and of course, Councillor Spinks put it, there was 2017, so it does take a while before we get all the information and all the data there. Not only is it not easily understood, it can be very complex and fairly subjective as well, as it has been for many years. So I did appreciate the additional briefing that we had last week, which brought me up to speed on that. And I do thank the people from the Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority who were able to articulate this into more layman's terms, if you like. Certainly the hydraulic modelling that they do now is a far cry versus the aerial snapshots that were used in previous there. So we're actually in a far better position to analyse and to respond to flooding than we've ever been, and particularly on the basis of, you know, in and around the Shepparton area. People do remember 1974, 1993, 2010, and, you know, north of Shepparton, etc. So, you know, we need to work with this particular flood study, but also in conjunction and holistically with the flood overlays that are in Shepparton and Maroubna and north of that. So we need to know where it falls, not just in our municipality, and flood comes in various forms. It comes in rain, but it comes from the rivers, it comes from a whole range of different ways that flood management can be. So when we know where the overflows go, the overlay is, it certainly puts us in a far better position, and we certainly do appreciate the study being brought forward.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I will speak against it, but that doesn't mean I'll vote against it. I'm a little bit confused, as I've expressed to our directors and to our CEO and to you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry, Mayor Sarley, I shouldn't say Mr. Mayor anymore, I've been told off for that. Look, this particular mapping event will start in 2011. It was happening whilst the Shepparton Maroubna 1% flood modelling was happening as well. So both of these things were running concurrently. I think the previous council really wasn't aware that this was actually running underneath, but there you go, it was. And I'm still slightly confused as to, no, it has been explained to me as to why this was initiated by the Catchment Authority. We've got other areas in and around Shepparton that are imminently ready for development, which I would suspect needed this sort of scrutiny before this particular area. And I just want to note, it's called the Shepparton East Overland Flow Urban Flooding Study. However, from all my research, it's really Grainvale, to be quite honest. It doesn't even include the Shepparton East so-called township. So it's not really Shepparton East as such, but that's probably just semantics there. It is what it is. It's a certain area of land in and around Shepparton. And I'm not going to try and pick apart the actual study. It is what it is. These are expert hydrologists. They're using the latest technology, so no doubt the findings are accurate according to the latest technology. As I said, I'm just confused why this particular area was even chosen by the Catchment Authority, not by council. The explanation was that they received some funding at the time and they decided this would be a priority area. I still don't know why, however, there it is. We're only noting it. Noting it is the first step to, at some point, endorsing it down the track. So as I said, I'm speaking against the process more than anything else, not so much the actual data that's been produced. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? I might just have some closing comments as well, and look, I can understand the reasons why these are needed, and I probably support a lot of Councillor Adams' commentary around this particular item. I'm not effectively challenging the information, but rather the area that was focused on, the Shep East heading, rather than it obviously highlighting a significant part of Grainvale and other parts of Shepparton as well, so not even including the Shep East township. I mean, look, I'm presuming a lot of landholders in that particular area are aware of this study, and it's been ongoing for a number of years now as well, so I don't think it'll be any surprises. My main priority with any type of study that gets done, that, yeah, absolutely, you don't want to go and build in dangerous areas where flood will encroach on your subdivisions, but we want to do all possible to encourage development in all parts that are suitable in our region. And I would see that, you know, where we're forecast to go with our identified land through our 2050 strategy, that, you know, who knows what's to happen into the future, that we don't minimise development in other parts of our municipality as well. So look, I support the data that goes with it. I don't support the reasoning behind it, in particular that area, but I don't often like using the word "it is what it is," but in this circumstance, I'm accepting the noting, and we'll see what happens into the future. We will go to the vote if there's no other councillors that would like to speak to the motion. Oh, actually, write a reply. I've been a bit slack on it.
Not that I have anything wildly important to add, but I just want to clarify that we are talking about this study captured the drain and channel systems rather than the actual rivers, the riverine, which is very relevant across the particular area they're talking about. And perhaps instead of calling it the Shepparton East Overland Flow, it should have been the east of Shepparton Overland Flow, and that may have taken out the question around the actual township. But ultimately, I suppose the reasoning behind the study being done doesn't change the relevance of the information that came out of it. So it's still going to be of value to council and of value to the municipality or area that this study covers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on proposed. Councillors, we now go to page 84 of the agenda, item 13.1, which is the award of contract number 2050 tree maintenance and tree planting panel of suppliers. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to move the recommendation on page 84 as a motion. I will not read that, but as printed in the agenda.
Thank you. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second the motion. Sally?
Councillor Adam. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, very briefly, this is about the award of contract for tree maintenance and tree planting panel of suppliers. Greater Shepparton City Council, we manage over 45,000 street and park trees, so it is only you know, it's a reasonable approach to have a panel of suppliers rather than relying on one particular supplier for tree maintenance and tree planting. So this contract is about the panel, and there were 7 tender responses. Tender evaluation panel has recommended that all 7 tenders be appointed to the panel, and they are the panel contractors shall supply all materials, plant, equipment, and labor, and any other services to complete the works. The contract term is for 3 years with 2 one-year extensions at council's discretion, of course. All these tenders are either locally based, or they have indicated that they'll be using local materials, local subcontractors, and materials will be purchased locally. So I'm comfortable looking at the assessment of the panel about appointing these 7 tenderers to be on the panel.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very shortly, this is just obviously a part of our procurement process. I'm happy that 7 companies were put onto the panel. That's great. I trust that each one of these 7 different companies is treated equitably and the work is distributed equally amongst them. Just want to note that.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 89 of the agenda, item 13.2, award of contract number 2258, construction, Wheeler Street and Udukey Road, Shepparton intersection. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation 13.2, award of contracts number 2258, construction of Wheeler Street and Udukey Road, intersection upgrade on page 89 of the agenda. And I'll just quickly read the recommendation. That the council award contract number 2258, construction Wheeler Street and Udukey Road, intersection upgrade to Jarvis Delaney Contractors Proprietary Limited. And number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute such documents as necessary to give effect to the resolution.
Very small clarification. Delahaye, not Delaney. Sorry.
Oh, Delahaye. Okay, my apologies.
And for a price.
A couple wrong today, but anyway.
And you read out part of 1, but left out the price.
Yeah, okay.
Did you?
I'll reread that again if you like.
If that would be okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sully. Yeah, part of that recommendation is number 1 is award contract number 2258, construction Wheeler Street, a new Dookie Road intersection upgrade to Jarvis Delahaye. Contractors Proprietary Limited for the lump sum price of $1,324,097.51, including GST. And number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute such documents as are necessary to give effect to this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This contract is for works to upgrade the intersection of Wheeler Street and Udukey Road, Shepparton, from a T intersection to traffic signals. The tender was publicly advertised with 3 submissions received, all from local tenderers, which is, again, positive for our community. Jarvis I'm struggling there. Delahaye.
Yeah, it probably doesn't matter anyway.
I know who they are. My apologies. Contractors Proprietary Limited
JDC.
submitted a confirming tender, demonstrated capacity and ability to carry out the works under this contract. Tendered lowest price and received the overall highest moderate score. Just a quick overview of the scope of the works. The survey set out level control, preparation management plan, which is very important, provision of traffic control devices, demolition of existing road pavement, construction of new road pavements, line marking, signage, construction of new water main, decommissioning of old water main, construction of protection cover for Telstra assets, construction of shared path, and a number of other things too as well. The tenders, the open request for tender was advertised on the 22nd of July 2022 and closed on the 24th of August 2022. The tenders were received from Mawson Constructions, Apex Earth Moving, and thank you, Councillor Brophy, JDC Constructions. 3 submissions were received in total, all from local tenderers. After moderation, 2 were shortlisted tenderers were interviewed to gain a further understanding of their tender submissions. JDC Proprietary Limited tendered the lowest price and received highest moderated quantitative score. Although their moderated qualitative score was the lowest of all tenders, the evaluation panel was satisfied with their responses during the tender interview process. Confidently recommend JDC Proprietary Limited as the preferred tenderer for the works under contract. JDC Proprietary Limited have completed similar projects for the Greater Shepparton City Council in the past and demonstrated having undertaken a variety of similar projects for other clients. My apologies for, right, I'll practice my English when it comes.
That's okay, Councillor
Thank you, Mayor.
James. Councillor Bradford, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much. Councillor James has summed it up absolutely perfectly. Just congratulations to JDC, and again reiterating how good it was to see the three tenderers come in all locally based. That's fantastic. It's fantastic for the local economy, and it's also fantastic for local suppliers. Thank you.
Councillor Bradford, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Just to highlight that this project is part funded by the Heavy Vehicle Safety Productivity Program Round 7 by the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communication and Arts. So it's a 50-50 funding agreement. I also just want to take a moment to point out, without talking to specific details, it is always a challenge to balance the qualitative and quantitative scoring of these projects. We want to deliver the projects that provide the best quality as well as best quantity. And I do want to congratulate, there was a tender that had notably higher environmental scoring, and I just want to congratulate them for putting in the effort to have more to provide more environmentally beneficial projects. In this particular project, that one wasn't the successful tender, and I congratulate Jarvis Delahaye on their successful tender. But it is noting that we work very hard to try and balance those two things, and that quantity, I argue, is just as important as quality, and I think that's always important to consider with our procurement policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I just want to take a slightly different tack. Congratulations again to Welsford Street. I just want to make a comment. The need for this work, I would suggest, and I could be wrong, is indirectly linked to the new school, because that particular area, turning right onto Newdicky Road from Wheeler Street, has always been a little bit hairy sometimes, but it's become a lot worse in the last 12 months. So this may not have been noted as part of our expenditure that's been triggered by the school. I don't think it has been noted, I could be wrong, but indirectly I think this is another expense that the school location has generated. It needs to be done, absolutely, for the purpose of safety. However, I think it just should be noted that, to me, this is just another, as a result of the school has triggered this sort of work. So it's another expense that should be noted. I do support it, obviously.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, I'll just add a few little comments to it as well. I mean, look, it's good to see infrastructure projects underway. This is another significant one, even better that it goes to a local contractor as well. We love lights in Greater Shepparton. So I can understand the relevance of this one in this particular area because it is heavy vehicle based. I'm not sure if the school had a lot of relevance to do with it. I mean, that's arguable, but the reality is it's a heavy vehicle route. We all know that. The cannery, Jeff Thompson's is down there, the sale yards, and obviously the east-west connection through Balaclava Road. So this infrastructure upgrade will provide ease of use for the heavy vehicles in those areas, but it also beautifies that precinct further east of the works that were completed with the Balaclava Road and Verney Road upgrade as well. So that I think there's some shared paths being constructed and a beautification taking place through there. So it'll connect really well into that precinct. So yeah, it's good. It's getting done. No doubt it'll provide a safer environment, and that's the most important part. So we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 93 of the agenda, item 13.3, award of contract number 2262 Welsford Street, stage 4, Briar Street, Shepparton intersection upgrade. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor, please move that. Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion as it is printed on page 93 of the document, of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I please have someone second that motion? Councillors, I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, just really briefly, ultimately, this went through the same tender process that all projects do. The evaluation panel assessed Apex Earth Moving Pty Ltd as having appropriate capacity and capability to carry out the works under this contract. They've completed similar projects for Greater Shep City Council and demonstrated multiple similar projects undertaken for other clients. They had the, this again is being half 50-50 funded through the same program round as the previous item. So we're always grateful to receive funding to support these projects getting up and across. And just a congratulations to Apex Earth Moving for their successful tender.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, but just to say that it's great to see that the works for stage 4 of this Welsford Street redevelopment project is now about to happen. So very excited about it, and that's it.
Councillor Abdullah, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 97 of the agenda, which is item 14.1, and there is a recommendation there to close the meeting. Can I please have a councillor please that?
That motion, Mayor Sully, that we close the meeting. I should read it, that pursuant to section 66-1 of the Local Government Act 2020, resolve that the council meeting be closed to members of the public for consideration of the following confidential item: curbside commingle recycling gate fee, agreement with Busy and Food Waste.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks. All in favour?
I'd like to speak.
Motion carried. Thank you. We will now close the meeting to the public. Sorry, Anna. Now go to page 98 of the agenda, which is item 15, documents for signing and sealing, nil received. We now go to page 99 of the agenda, item 16.1.1, councillor activities, August 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Motion,
Councillor Adam.
Sally, that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and formal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, obviously, there's many different events that councillors attend. It's obviously getting better and better, and we're attending more and more as the COVID threat is lessening. So I expect this to get larger and larger, actually. Again, it's just a good indication of all the different and many and varied community organisations that we engage with. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Spinks, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 101 of the agenda, item 16.2, council committee reports, nil received. Also on that page is 16.3, notice of motion, amendment or rescission. There is one there under 16.3.1, notice of motion 9/2022, culturally significant events and festivals. Councillors, there is a recommendation there. Can I please have that put as a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to make a motion that a report be provided to the 20 December 2022 council meetings, which, number one, outlines the progress of the Greater Shepparton City Council Multicultural Strategy 2019-2022. Number two, includes a recommendation for the preparation of the next version of the multicultural strategy. And number three, contains an action in the draft multicultural strategy that the mayor is to acknowledge key culturally significant events, significant festivals observed by the multicultural communities in Greater Shepparton, and issue a greeting message to the respective communities on the festival day.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
I'll second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sali.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Sali. So we know that Shepparton has a rich history of migration. We have all the data in front of us. 15% of the population is born overseas, compared with 11% of regional Victoria. 15% of the population speak a language other than English at home. And Greater Shepparton's multicultural community comprises people from over 50 countries who speak more than 40 languages. Over the past few years, the community, the council, and local leadership have acknowledged the celebration of multiculturalism as a source of pride, and also Greater Shepparton's unique identity that sets us apart from many regional areas. Due to the vibrant multicultural communities in Greater Shepparton, the key festive celebrations are not limited to Christmas, as many sections of the community also celebrate their own culturally significant festivals with zest. To them, these festivals are equivalent to celebrating Christmas. It has been a tradition for the mayor to acknowledge Christmas and issue a greeting message to the community. So in the spirit of the council's strategic priority of valuing cultural diversity, I am proposing that the mayor of Greater Shepparton acknowledges the key culturally significant festivals observed by the multicultural communities in Greater Shepparton by issuing a greeting message to the respective communities on the festival day. The norm is, this motion is basically proposing a report to come back to the December council meeting, which outlines the progress of the actions that are included in our current multicultural strategy, and also a recommendation for reviewing the current multicultural strategy. Along with this proposed action, it will, this will enable the inclusion of this action in the draft strategy, and once finalized, it will allow the mayor to issue a greeting message to multicultural communities on their key festivals, which are equivalent in significance to Christmas. So as an example, these festivals can include, but are not limited to, Diwali, celebrated by the Hindu community, Vesak, Eid al-Fitr, or Chinese New Year, etc. So basically, the strategic intent of this motion is for Council to adapt to the evolving multicultural landscape of Greater Shepparton, to meet the expectations of the Shepparton's multicultural communities, and of course, achieve positive outcomes for social cohesion and a sense of belonging and inclusion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. And I certainly welcome Councillor Abdullah putting forward this particular notice of motion. I think the first 2 points of the recommendation are an absolute no-brainer. They need to be brought forward and they need to be progressed in terms of that. It was interesting in terms of I had to think about, what can the mayor, is it going to be national days or just, I mean, I guess this is the balance, isn't it, in terms of we've got so many multicultural groups here. What is the balance, and, how much is too much, and at what point do we acknowledge, at what threshold? So I think that'll be the point there. And I think in terms of multicultural, and I think of all of the cultures that we have here. So for instance, Irish contingent, St. Paddy's Day, 17th of March, we've got the 30th of November being St. Andrew's Day for our Scottish friends, Waitangi Day in February for our New Zealanders, which is 182 years of history there, and they celebrate that there. So at what point do we sort of look there? And I don't say this to belittle it at all, but what I do is it raises the days that, what are the significance? Because those ones I mentioned are no more or no less than perhaps other ones as well that we have within our community. So are we wholly inclusive or subjectively inclusive? We need to make sure that we've got that right balance. We are not a monocultural regional centre, unlike many other regional city contemporaries that we have. We are multicultural, and we are very proud of that. So I welcome a report to establish this, in fact, is the correct way about acknowledging that, and I think that's really great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Ladies first.
Thank you, Councillor Solly. Thank you, Councillor Adam. I just wanted to say I absolutely applaud this notice motion, and well done to Councillor Abdullah for bringing this to the table and to our council. I think it's a wonderful example of what of a representative council representing community fully and completely, and making a note that this in no way, I know often when we have these sort of conversations there is a bit of a discussion around Christmas being knocked off its perch, but it's just not at all. We are richer for learning more about the people around us and the people that are in our neighbourhoods, in our community, and council represents all of the people that people and cultures and practices and celebrations that exist in our community. And to now, I would argue we do not do that fully, and we can do that better. And so this notice of motion is seeking to correct that, but not in a negative way, in a wonderful way, where we can do things better and more fully, and we can truly celebrate not just that we are diverse, but celebrate with that diversity and celebrate the celebrations of that diversity. It's very exciting. And also to point out that we've had a little bit of discussion around this would seem like a very small action to implement and a very simple thing to do. But at the end of the day, council laws are a strategic body that decide not just what Councillor Saleh as mayor will do tomorrow, but what the role of mayor will do tomorrow and into the future. And so it's important that we come at this as a strategic decision that we can implement for long-term change to better represent our community. So it's and I know that our multicultural strategy is up for review in the near future, so it's wonderful timing and it's all going to line very well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Sally. Again, great motion. I fully support it. My only small concern is the action that the report should contain in the draft, that the mayor is to acknowledge key culturally significant festivals observed by the multicultural community of Greater Shepparton and issue a greeting message to the respective communities on the festival day. I agree entirely in principle. I'm just a bit concerned about the criteria for that. I can think of 10 right now of different events, but there's probably another 5 that I can't think of. Are they going to be leaning towards religious festivals, or religious and cultural, or religious, cultural and community? So I think we need to establish a bit of a criteria here and make sure we don't miss out anyone. We may have, there's a Jewish community in Shepparton as an example, small, but it's there. If they don't let us know about those particular days, do we ignore that? So do we embark on an exercise of actually finding out who's out there exactly, ensure we don't miss anyone? That's my only concern. I think it's great and it needs to be done, but how do we ensure that we do not miss anyone out? That's my only concern. I don't know whether that requires another point to be added to the motion or not, Councillor, but I don't know. Are you happy to do that, or is this report enough? The report we provided, it outlines the progress. Well, that's not actually changing or adding anything, it's just outlining the progress and the recommendation for the preparation of the next version. So maybe in that point there, this criteria could be developed. Is that a yes or a no, Mr. CEO?
It's well and truly covered by point 2, Councillor.
There you go, I did say that. I got there in the end. So that was my only concern, but I hope that this does actually set out a really good, clean criteria that encapsulates everyone.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Can I thank Councillor Abdullah for this motion? I think that it reflects our community, basically. And I don't know if Councillor Adams is speaking against that recommendation or for. Anyway, so I think it reflects our community here in the Golden Valley. And recently attending a couple of conferences in Melbourne, it reiterates exactly what this community is, and what it says about our community in regards to our beautiful culture, you know, that's in our community. If you look at our current elected councillors, we have 3 councillors from appointed councillors here from different cultural backgrounds, which bring to this council and the town of Shepparton richness of our culture and what contributions we make to this town. I think it's a strength of this community and our constituents in regards to how we operate, and we do value people from cultural and linguistic and multiculturalism in our community. And I think Councillor Abdullah summed it up in the 40 different languages that are spoken in our community. You mentioned that at different forums, as in Melbourne and other regional centres, and it's very hard for them to understand that that is the diversity of our community. And I think it is, it's great that this town embraces that too as well. I'm very proud of this council in regards to how we promote our First Nations heritage and history in this community. I would like that to be also extended right throughout too as well. And as Councillor added in a recommendation from point 3 and onwards, is that is very important for our community to celebrate, you know, the culture, the strength of our culture in our community, and it's typified basically from with our council elections too as well.
Thank you, Councillor James. Well, you can't be a mayor from a multicultural background and not support this. So I offer my support for this, and I look forward to the ongoing conversations that we have, which there's been some important points raised that, yeah, absolutely, we bring this to the table and see where we can end up in regards to finding the appropriate number of multicultural days that are significant for whether it's religious or national holidays, whatever it might be as well, and we find a good balance there that, you know, we're not leaving anyone out that we shouldn't be, but also have it that we have the ability to add perhaps as we go along, but also making sure that we don't go over the top as well with, you know, I can see it as being a positive aspect of acknowledging every day, but I think you can actually overdo it, in my opinion, and that's someone from a multicultural background. It's important that we celebrate our different cultures, but also celebrate our Australian traditional cultures as well. So look forward to the conversations moving forward. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 102 of the agenda. Item 17, urgent business not included on the agenda, nil received. And item 18, close the meeting, which I will do now at 5:09 p.m. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.